Hey everybody, PTO Pro here, and today we're going to take a little dive under the hood of what is on this website. So it's a web component driven website. It took almost no time to make, mostly because of that, to be perfectly honest. Implementing a design system, or attempting to, I'm trying to match university design system. Um, if we have that logic and we have the web component standard and some of the tools available to us as far as continuous integration workflows, you can build pretty darn impressive things very quickly. For example, most of this website was done in about 4 hours. So let's dive in a little bit, see how this was made. So I'm going to inspect. If I can click, there we go. Inspect, and we'll see we've got a body tag, HTML, we've got some header stuff. Nothing ridiculous there, right? But we have HAX-PSU. The entire site hydrates from this tag. Now, one thing we do as far as trying to hit higher SEO and kind of balance that like low performance environment versus the full on web would be this. So with web components, I need JavaScript for that to render. So we want to have some fallback if things are loading slowly for our users, which I'm simulating here. We can see disable cache and slow 3G network. So as soon as I get the site, there is just HTML and CSS there, right? And actually, you can still see it loads pretty stinking fast, even with the cache disabled and slow 3D. I actually had a lot of issues simulating pulling that out. I had to make the code stop working, quite frankly. So the files are so small that it's going to hydrate pretty quickly, but we want people to be able to get that initial experience. As I always say in the classroom, you're on the street, it's 2 a.m., you're trying to get an Uber and you've only got 10% battery life. That's when you're really hoping that your network is fast, the data download is small, and that everything connects just right. So in this instance, right, I was able to add that in. Another way that we support those types of use cases is there's still HTML here. It's not like magic with web components, even though at times it can feel that way. So we've got meta properties, all the stuff for getting decent SEO, right? Manually made that or copied from a template, right? We've got some CSS, and then this is a trick for making sure we get that first paint really fast. So we do HAX-PSU and a not selector and :defined. So these are pseudo selectors in this case, not defined. So when HAX-PSU is not yet defined, apply this styling to more or less keep things looking like they're about to be when they're hydrated. By hydrated, I mean that the HAX-PSU tag actually works. So there's a little tiny task right before you get all those files where it's not actually defined. And this is a really simple trick for accommodating that. So you can see we've got a couple things in there to make sure that this looks nice. Now, the actual DOM or document object model of what this looks like is just HAX-PSU. We've got some content in there that we render before HAX-PSU is actually defined. However, at the bottom, we see script type module src/HAX-PSU.js. This means that that definition for HAX-PSU is entirely contained within this file. You don't have to do things that way with web components, but our team has found that that simplifies figuring out where stuff is. So in that file, collapse all of this, right? We've pulled in some other libraries. So we pulled in shoelace. So that's how we get our little slider. We've pulled in their translations just so it works correctly. It's part of their setup. Page section, which was an element that we made for this site. And then because we've made it for this site, that means it's now available for HAX. So it's not on HAX.psu yet to be able to place those section tags down, but we're working on it. So if we see here at the bottom, I've got define and we've got the definition of HAX-PSU binded into this class. Now looking at what this is, right, we've got support for examples, the year, right? That way it says since 2023 or whatever, or 2024 next year. So I don't have to update that. Support for an image, some stats that load in, and a title. Then within this, because we're scoped, we've kind of all the styles that could potentially be on the outside of our site are no longer valid. If I really wanted to, I could put the HAX-PSU tag on any website, and it would look identical. It would hydrate the same way. I would get that same experience. I don't have a need for that just yet. This is still kind of an MVP. We're actually going to put this in as part of the Haxcellence website, which is documenting the whole project, user tutorials, things like that. So this will be a community hub eventually. Right now, putting it in one tag makes it so that when we build an actual HAX site that is powering the front of the HAX website, which is kind of trippy, it will have this one tag on the homepage called HAX-PSU, and it'll look the same way, but it'll kind of be obscuring, hey, there's a whole system behind this. So anyway, we've got CSS, right? We can use CSS variables, pass some things down. Nothing out of the ordinary here, just kind of implementing based on that design system that's being worked on. So we've got playlists. You see there's a lot of CSS involved in this. Come on, there we go. Okay. This is another way we hit certain performance quotas. So for example, on the homepage, there's that little thing that glitches. That's actually a tag that was created in the classroom quite a while ago. Might have been 2018, to be perfectly honest. It's called future terminal text. I don't even remember what the reason that we did that was. Basically like a trying to emulate some video game, I think, as far as like a style where like a user would speak and it would show the prompt and it would go like, and then like the next thing was supposed to look futuristic. So we made future terminal text. It was just like an example so that students could learn how to make something simple and artistic using web components. But we're able to leverage all kind of other elements in here, right? So we have simple CTA, that's a call to action button. We've got our scroll button. We've got our whole playlist. We've got our grid plate, which is what we use for column layouts. We've got our count up element, which is another element from the classroom. We've got RPG character, which is hidden in the site and is another element from the classroom. I'll show where he's hidden. And then we're reusing some wider community elements in the form of Shoelace. And Shoelace is a really nice design system that has mappings for the carousel, what that should look like and feel like. Now, the other nice thing about building this on HAX-PSU as a component is, let's say that our design system as an institution has a carousel in it. It's easy enough to switch out in this one place, push the code up, and then we're implementing that design system language. So we're not doing a ton of investment in a carousel if we're repurposing one for the time being. So we can see we do this on what's called first updated. Now, first updated in lit, which lit is what's actually powering our web component. We don't use vanilla web components. We use this slim layer on top called lit that just has some nice timing conventions and performance gains. So first updated means the tag is rendered and it's interactable, like people can see it and start modifying it. At that point in time is when we actually import all of the things that make up all the little bits of that page. So this is an approach that we've worked on in classroom sorts of elements. We have elements that don't load until you actually get to them, because you might be on the other side of the earth taking an online course with us. We don't need to send you that really big video player asset until you actually go to a page that has it and it's visible in your viewport. So we're able to get really high scores as far as pushing content anywhere with low latency because of these type of technical approaches. So we render the examples. For example, those are way down in the document. We don't need to actually build out what those examples are until it's time to you're actually there. So we can see we're reusing a simple image. This is something that ties into a screenshot service that was made as part of HAX platform. At large, the simple image tag automatically will take the screenshot and compress it. So then the simple CTA, that's something we've had before. We wire some data into it. Right? There's not actually a lot of HTML in here. As you see, there's a lot of JavaScript logic, and we're basically just repurposing things that we already had and styling them with CSS. There was a ton of CSS in this document. This is where our examples are coming from. So we're pointing to the image as far as what to go take a picture of. And then we're also pointing to the address, like, hey, when the user clicks, go here. So we can see this dot examples is probably a good example. So we go down to the render examples template, And what's happening there is it's going to take that data and run it through this little portion of a template. So that for each one of those slides in the slide deck, when you click and you can see what the different links are, we've got simple image, which is going to go take that screenshot. We've wired in the URL to click on it. We've said, hey, those buttons are blue, so they match our design system. And then we've got the title in question as well as the type and description. So some other little niceties of this, we hit an endpoint delivered by Vercel, which is hitting some other system that is telling us what our usage statistics are on HAX.psu. So we actually generate these values off of old data, so it gets updated every few days is the idea. And so we're able to hit that endpoint and pull that data in to help visualize what those statistics are. So those are actually pulled off of, a few days ago sort of numbers. The glitching, we have a thing called do glitch internal to that tag. And so we're just kind of calling, hey, glitch at 1 second, glitch at 5, glitch at 10 seconds, so that it has these different words in here. It's trying to be a little bit, eye-catching, that there's something different about this technological approach versus the way web development has been done for the last 30 years. So we get into the actual internals of that page, right? We've got our top menu. It's got section 2, section 3, section 4. But when we get into those actual bands of the page, they are page-section tags. And the really nice thing about aligning a design system with a singular element is, if I were to right-click this, right, we have divs, you expect stuff like that. But we've also got this page-section, and I can add some things into a page-section that minimize my overhead as far as CSS and JavaScript knowledge. For example, this says fold. And if I delete fold, you might notice at the bottom, it takes away an SVG. And that SVG's entire purpose is to give you the visual confirmation that, hey, this isn't just an image. There's something down there, okay? Similarly, there's scroller. So if I don't want to have the scroll button, I get rid of the scroller attribute. If I want to scroll to the next full section, then I have scroller on there. Also, I'm able to change the label on that scroller. So if we change this to fun ways to build ahead, right? We see it updated on this button. And now when I hover this, it'll say fun ways to build ahead. So by using the web component standard in this way, pegged to a design system and a design language, we can very easily build these types of banded websites, if you will, right? So each one of these is a page section. Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, Section 5. In the case of Section 4, it's using our grid plate tag. And our grid plate tag says, hey, this is a 3 column layout here. It's 1, 1, 1. If I were to change this to 1-1, we'd see that content stacks differently, right? So because we solved that really hard problem in HAX more broadly, and we didn't solve it for our platform, we solved it for the web. Effectively, the internet has access to this type of a tag. We can start building on top of those things much more rapidly than ever before. So under container for these squares, for example, yes, the squares are designed as their own little thing, but the counting and all of the code associated with this running when it's visible, right? It's not going to run when I'm up here, but when I scroll it into view, as soon as it's visible, all of that logic around visibility, around counting up to a value, that's self-contained down in a count up element. We see it as suffix text of pages. We see it as end 7,503. That happens no matter what these values are. I could add an additional count up. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Like I say, I could add more count up elements to the page kind of anywhere. That information is, or sorry, that code is compartmentalized. So anywhere I would put that count up tag, although right now it's got, there we go. I have to, there, messing with the design. Anywhere that I would render that, I get that functionality. It's not stuffed in all this various CSS and this JavaScript that's only going to work on this document. It works anywhere. Not that we have used count up in online courses. I believe that was a student project at one point around making the little counter, because we had like a whole website and we reverse engineered aspects of a whole website for that that project when we did that. So reusing other people's work, right? We see down here, we've got examples that has simple image. That's one of our tags. We've got details that has simple CTA. That's one of our tags. And if we stick to a design system, and now ours is using something called simple colors as far as our color language. So if we limited that even more to the Penn State color scheme, like we still need to, right? We can see there's all these variations of color. So for example, if I was to say, I want you to be orange, it's going to make it orange. And if I say, I don't want it to be dark, I want it to be light, this implies that there is a contrast ratio there. So if you just saw from an accessibility perspective, a huge win. When I hover this, right, it inverts the color as well as the text color. And it's going to do this no matter what value I give it, because we have this common language within the button itself as far as how to understand color. So if I say dark, right, does that invert? And then the button, the CTA, inverts the high tone and the low tone, no matter what it is. Now, using someone else's work, this is another web component. So this is from a different project. This is from Shoelace, right? We have buttons, click. And this was a very easy way to get a carousel into our setup. So we have, in this case, SL carousel item. All the logic for that individual carousel item, as well as the carousel itself, is bundled up into that tag. Then, as a general convention, what we do, whenever we use someone else's work that is not within our project team, we end up making another element that is the highly semantic way of solving that. So a lot of design systems out there will have language like this. In this case, SL is short for shoelace, right? So SL carousel, because it's implementing their carousel and the design system. That's not how we're using it, though, or as far as how we want our users to be able to use it. We want them to think semantically about the web. So while it's great that that is a carousel and that it's in that SL design system, the more important thing for our user base is that it's a playlist. And a playlist could have anything. In fact, if we went and modify the playlist, I'm not going to do that, but you can see the playlist has these individual items in it. So we have playlists in other courses, and a playlist isn't necessarily what you would think of in this case as a slider or a carousel. It's images. Oh, but the first three are images. The fourth one is actually a video. So by not having a image gallery, right, and we have this much more generalized convention semantically in our HTML via web components, we can repurpose this anywhere because this code works on the web much more broadly than if this were in some library framework content management system specific worldview. So as we go down, we can see, there's scroll button. That was the other one I point to. So it's actually hidden behind me. All right, so if I click top, it's going to jog me back up to the top. Right, user, that scrolls down. Now you still do some operations like that, and they're going to be a little more page specific, right, based on what your implementation is. So it's not to say there's no JavaScript. It's just there's so much less thinking about JavaScript and how we're going to do something. Because we're not reusing conventions, we're reusing identical code to stack and solve these bigger and bigger problems. So I did mention that the 8-bit or 8-bit character is in here. We do still have the 8-bit character. He's following you around. It's actually an avatar generated version of whatever your screen name is. At some point, we'll let people customize them. But it was part of a student design project. Team worked in the Innovation Hub for months on just the overarching, like, we need to make website building feel like fun video games, which is, what's with that? Because that's what we end up getting as a question all the time. And it's kind of radically different looking on purpose, to be perfectly honest. Web building shouldn't be difficult. It should be fun. And people gravitate to video games not because they're boring and it's a difficult task. It's because it's easy to use and it's fun and engaging. The actual construction of web materials should be fun and engaging. It shouldn't be something where you have to know what any of what I'm talking about in this video is in order to participate on the web effectively. So our little 8-bit people are there, our RPG characters. And these ones are just random. Again, this is just repurposing stuff that we already had. And so if we don't supply a seed value, the seed values in this case are generated, you should see the little characters well, they haven't modified yet, but if I add seed equals and put in some random, that is a randomly generated character every time. So if I do BTO 108, my screen name, get a certain person. If I do BTO Pro, a screen name I use, I get a certain person. Right? If I do, Drupal, anything, literally any word, literally, we will get a unique combination because we're taking a hashed value, we're going through the hash of what this is, and then we're effectively pointing at one of like 10 different SVGs. And I only end here pointing to this part because never in my life would I think to develop all of this to put on a website to communicate about a project unless it didn't cost me anything. So by making this tag by a student team 2 years ago, working on a fun video game vibe to making a website, we can now add RPG characters anywhere. This isn't just that we make things faster. We literally transform and hack the web as it once was. We hack the way people used to build things. So if you would be interested in joining the community or learning more about web components more broadly and their advantages over traditional web frameworks and libraries, you can hop on our Discord, join the larger community. Direct message me. I'm on Teams if you're watching this and you're internal to the university. But we're trying to make it fun, fast, free, easy, all of those things while still meeting our core use cases, which in this case is, we're putting content online and very large course content at times online, but repurposing all of the same resources for every single project, right? And these things will load extremely fast, no matter where they are, whether they're viewed here on this website or if we were to migrate to something 10 years from now, this stuff will still work. So thank you for watching. Hope you found the website interesting. I'll post the code in the description if you want to poke around more and deploy that on Vercel yourself and mess with it. Thanks.